Hello and welcome to yet another edition of E-Expressions for the New Indian Express. I have with me today the Audi head in India, Balbir Singh Dhillon. It's the number one luxury brand, luxury car brand in India since 2015. Am I right, Mr. Dhillon?
I mean, when you say number one in terms of volume, I may not agree with you, but of course, in terms of customer satisfaction, we are number one, I would say.
And we have a baby brand in India at least, but it's an old and trusted Korean brand, Kia Motors. We have Mr. Manohar Bhatt from there, Vice President and Head Marketing and Sales. And we have Mr. Chawla, Editorial Director of the New Indian Express. We're going to try and figure out, since the government has told us that the green shoots are evident and auto sales are evidence of it, we're going to try and figure out whether the green shoots are really green, or are they light green, or are they dark green? What color of green are they? And the auto sector is perhaps always the first marker of it. So, Mr. Dhillon, exactly what color are the green shoots?
So, as we are opening up, there is no doubt that the number of inquiries that we are receiving, they are improving month on month. Let's say from the start of May, when we started to open up slowly, from May to June to July to August and September, all these months, the number of inquiries have definitely been increasing. However, I'm also telling this with a little bit of a caution, because in luxury segment, it behaves a bit differently than volume segment. On the volume segment, obviously, Mr. Bhatt will talk more about it. But mostly people, when they're moving from, to personal mobility from a public mobility, there is definitely a pent-up demand on the entry-level cars. But when it comes to luxury segment, most of our buyers are, businessmen. So for businessmen, their businesses have impacted because of COVID. And, by the time the businesses are back in running, I mean, car will probably not be the first priority, because it is not just that you want to take care of a business first, but this is also messaging when, an investor buys a car and the business is not going well. So there are, these kind of emotional topics that one has to address. But yes, the number of inquiries are increasing, and the number of cars that we're selling, it is improving month on month. And as we are closing towards the festive season, obviously every year we definitely benefit, all of us, on this festive season, because especially on the luxury side, we sell emotions, and car is a byproduct. So at the end of the day, when the emotions are high, when people are spending towards this period, which is between October to December, we definitely benefit. So we are seeing improvements, but in the luxury segment, it is still time before we can see a complete revival of our industry.
Right, but you do foresee a revival?
Yes, it is improving for sure. But you have to see, this year definitely is not going to grow as compared to last year in terms of luxury segment volumes, because we've lost certain months, and it is not possible to recover those months straight away. Of course, next year we see this to be growing from as compared to this year, but this comes at at the back of low volumes this year, because there is low industry this year. So we will definitely grow. But whether we can go back to the peak times, which for us were, in the year 2018, I would say, in the overall industry, it may take a little more time.
Right. Mr. Bhatt, tell me, what is the situation with Kia? You came into India in 2017, if I'm not mistaken, and you've set up a new manufacturing facility in Andhra Pradesh as well. So you were really betting big on India. Has this year been, it's been a disappointment globally, but has it been particularly disappointing in India?
Like you said, we are a baby in the Indian market. We started our operations in 2017, and we started our sales exactly in August last year. Right. So we are a very fledgling company. We are doing comparatively well by, if you look at the overall industry as such, because we are showing growth, and both our SUV models, the Seltos and the recently launched Sonet, are in great demand. So to that extent, we are happy. But yes, the situation is not as what we would have forecast, say, in 2017, because this is sort of a once in a century event that has happened. So this can't be really taken into account. But having said that, like I said, we are getting more. I mean, inquiries are increasing day by day for the Seltos and for the Sonet. So to that extent, we are pretty much enthused. We have shown a growth over last year, obviously because we have launched a second vehicle, and even the old Seltos also is doing pretty well by itself. So we are confident about the medium-term estimate that we have had for the Indian market, because we don't believe that we will. I mean, the market is will disappoint us, because the economy itself, the GDP is forecast to grow in the coming years, and the auto industry is not divorced from. It is actually very closely linked to the GDP. And if you can do a regression, for example, you'll find that the growth in the per capita income is directly correlated to the growth of the Indian auto industry also. So the person feels rich, and he's got more income. Obviously, he's going to be spending on personal transport and cars and all that. So, like I said, the medium term is good. Short term, it could be better, but we are not complaining.
But we've seen a historic decline in the GDP, haven't we? 23.9% is enormous.
Yes, that's right. The industry has shrunk in in this calendar year by around, I think, around 30-odd%. But again, what Mr. Dhillon was saying, the degrowth or the growth, I mean, it's not spread evenly across all the segments. Like what he was mentioning, there is a lot of demand for for public, for your own personal transport, so that your lowest end cars, your compact hatches, and as also the premium hatches, they're showing a relatively less decline than other segments. But here the strange thing is that your SUV segment, the mid SUV segment, which comprises of the Seltos among other vehicles, that has shown a growth in absolute numbers in spite of the overall market decline. So again, so it's not like everyone is just rushing towards a cheap and affordable transport. It's like people also want something which is like good value, like your Seltos and other vehicles. It's what is possibly keeping us also pretty well so far.
Is
So
that
I would like to ask. I would like
Sorry,
to
Mr.
ask a
Chawla.
question, Mr. Dhillon. Yes, I want to just know whether the trends in Indian market are in line with the global market, since you are a global brand and you're selling all over the world, are in line with the decline or demand, inquiries, and whatever is happening. Is it in line, or we are suffering much more than, or we are better than them?
So if you're comparing it to other big markets or other global markets coming out of pandemic, many of the markets have really come back very, very quickly. So to be honest, we are lagging behind if you compare to global markets. I mean, of course, if I give you example of European market or let's say China, all these markets have come back quite quickly. For us,
pre-COVID level,
you can imagine that our cases are still growing very, very fast on a daily basis. Between 75 to 95,000 cases we still have. So recovery for us has not been as fast as certain other markets. So we are
the number of cases, in fact per million of people in India, active cases not even more than 17 lakh, 15 lakh, as against so many millions in other countries. So even our mortality is much higher. What I'm saying, it means Indian business is not taking, as you rightly pointed out in the beginning, that only the richer or middle class people go for luxury brand. So you are a luxury brand, no doubt about it. And in that case, that people who are willing to buy a Audi earlier or a Merc earlier, they don't have that kind of money yet to begin with to buy a new car or replace a new car. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely. That's what I mentioned, that most of our buyer segments are businessmen, and businesses have been impacted the highest in past 6 to 8 months time. I mean, and the business outlook, see, people, the luxury cars buying is very, very emotional buying. So you achieve in your life, you achieve certain things, and then you buy luxury cars. This is the time when when your business is down, you don't have those feelings. So that's why it is a bit constrained. Also, luxury cars buying is also like an asset buying. So many companies, when they make profits, they buy cars because also depreciation benefits and all. If there are no profits, there are no depreciations. So it's quite a lot of mix and match. But thing is that we also see positivity. It is not that everything is negative. We also feel that in the times to come, the international holidays or international travel may not be coming back as soon as we're thinking that an opening will happen. So there could be a lot of traveling happening locally. So a lot of holidays happening within India. And when that happens, people who are, who have achieved something in their lives, or people who belong to upper strata, they will definitely move around within Indian cities from one city to another in their luxury cars. So there are also green shoots on those. So some things which we are missing, and some things which are better. just to give you one more example, let's say the aviation sector was going down. There are a lot of pilots who were buying cars. That is not happening. But at the same time, there are also green shoots in the sense, I would say, there are certain industries which are really, really doing well at this point in time. Manufacturing of medicines, for an example. So there are the small corporates that are building PP kits. There are negatives, but there are also positive. There are also opportunities that have come forward. So it's a mix and match. We are looking at both sides wherever we focus now, and wherever we can generate more leads, so that we can sell more cars.
Mr. Dhillon, you rightly pointed out people are making profit and they were spending on luxury cars. Now when the industry is not doing, because luxury cars are part of the CEO's perks as well and top executives. And the companies are sacking most of them most of the time and reducing their salary. So basically you're saying once those luxury cars will be back when the profits are back in the industry. So at the moment you're a little worried about that. Issues may be happening, these are expectations which are happening. But I would like to know whether your luxury brand, which are price elastic or not, even if it is emotional, if I could buy a market, say 3 years earlier or last year, can I, after reduction in my salary, which everybody has got, I may not be able to replace that car, isn't it? Your pricing is such high because in fact the price of a luxury car has gone up by 20% over the last 2 years.
So you are right, but we have, let's say, solution for everything. We also have one vertical which is Audi Approved Plus. So there are also buyers who enter into luxury, not via directly buying new cars, but also buying pre-owned cars. So for example, you get a car which is properly given, warranty is given by us, let's say 2 to 3 years, and properly checked. So it is as good as a new car as far as your peace of mind is concerned. So there are also entry to luxury through these routes. So yes, you're right. If the CEOs, their salaries are being cut, or if they don't have work for some time, car is not the priority. But at the same time, we are in the business of selling cars. At the end of the day, we have to find the positivity. We have to find new channels where we can sell the cars, and that's what we are doing. And yes, we are also finding solutions.
The Kia has the advantage because they are the mid-segment, they are the baby manufacturer, they have got various options. Audi doesn't have an option to less than 50 lakh anyway. So
no, that is true. See, a large part of our, to be honest, large part of our, the cost of the car goes into taxation as well. We are also highly taxed. This is also one of the challenges that we continue to face. That's why the luxury segment is just about 1.2% of the overall automotive segment. It has just not grown beyond. If you compare this to, let's say, Southeast Asian countries, this segment is already 5-6% of the overall car market. But we are just about 1%, little over 1%, because our taxations are very, very high. So large part of the cost which customer is paying, either it is going to import duty or GST or registration taxes. So this is also, we are also contributing to the economy. I mean, we are just 1% of the volume of automotive. We almost contribute 10% of the revenue of automotive segment. So this is also another angle which, at the end of the day, comes into the picture. If the cars are very expensive, there will be less margin. It's a 20 into 30 is 600 and 30 into 20 is 600. So we can sell, if the tax is low, we can sell 30. If the tax is 30, we sell 20. At the end of the day, government makes that 600. But
basically, you're expressing you're also, Mr. Dhillon, expressing the same sentiments as somebody from Toyota said, that taxing or pricing in this country is not in favor of the luxury segment. Is that right?
Yes, that's true. And this is just one part, which is the local consumption, but this also impacts, let's say, if we want to make India an export hub, if we want to export to other countries, the taxations are high. So we are not competitive to many other markets where the taxations are low. So it's not just for India, but also in case we are looking.
Mr. Dhillon, I'm sorry, I'm not understood. On export also, you're non-competitive. When you are exporting from India, if you have a manufacturing hub in India, then what's the disadvantage you got?
So you see, we are a global company, and we also keep on looking at which are the countries where there are possibility to also manufacture and export. Of course, India is always known to be less cost of manufacturing, but if the taxations are high, even the export becomes difficult. So it is not just domestically we are having high taxation, but also there is a restriction in terms of the tax that we have to pay for export as well. So as we are expensive as compared to many other markets which are able to export.
Mr. Bhatt, before I go to Mr. Bhatt, I'm asking you again and again. Export, when you're exporting, domestic taxation doesn't apply to that product. How does it become a non-competitive? I just want to understand. what you sell in India may be expensive because of local taxation. How can it be non-competitive by exporting to other countries? I just want to understand that.
So we have treaties again with many countries. Like we have, let's say with Europe we have certain treaties. We have treaties with many other countries. So there, it is GST is it's not just for cars that are manufactured and sold locally, but there are also taxes which are also applicable on export. So export is not zero taxation. It's not zero duty. So export also has taxation. So that's the reason the cars that we sell out of India or we could sell out of India are also expensive as compared to other countries. The name of the tax could be anything. The name of the tax.
Give an example of a tax which let a general person like me should know that only even exporting is becoming non-competitive, and make in India, what we are talking about goes for a sixth then. I want to know what are the taxes which you are talking about.
So export taxation. I mean, there are taxation which are also applicable on export. It is not just import taxation. There is also an export taxation. That we also pay tax when we export the cars, and these are the taxes which are higher as compared to many other countries who are offering these taxations at a lower level. And let's say I'm just giving a random example. Mexico, for an example, the export tax from Mexico is lower than export tax from India. So if let's say Europe, there is one particular model which we could sell to 5 countries. If they import from Mexico, it could be cheaper than if they import from India. So that is where it makes the difference that, for us, the taxation even to that extent is difficult.
But I'll ask you one question. Here is the new entry in this country. You're aggressively advertising it also. Do you think that you're getting a better response during pandemic? Is it as per your expectation when you launched the product before that?
No, definitely not. The pandemic has really badly impacted the auto industry. That includes us also. If the pandemic were not there, we are very sure that we would have done even better with the Sonnet that was introduced just recently than it would have otherwise. Even the Seltos also would be selling, I think, much better numbers had the economy been its old normal self. In spite of that slight degrowth in the slowing down of the GDP and all that, still would have been much better, obviously, for the entire auto industry than with this pandemic.
But what about your competitors in other segments like your car? It's the same price range, but they are doing much better, isn't it? Like Maruti, I won't compare directly, but even the other, like you have got Mahindra and whatnot, they are doing much better according to the figures in the newspaper.
No, they're not doing much better as compared to the earlier times. Not all of them, and definitely not Maruti, definitely not the biggies, because overall the auto industry has shrunk by around 30-odd%. So that is a huge decline. And this on top of the numbers in 2019 being again a decline over the previous year. So overall, the industry is was not doing too well, and now with this pandemic, it is like gone down into the dumps. So the question is, when will it recover back to say the 2018 number? So this is the $1 million question. Now, this is the question that everyone is very closely following, when it can actually get back those numbers.
So what are the policy decisions the government of India has taken over the past couple of years, making diesel as expensive as the petrol? Because all the manufacturers came to India, they were producing mostly diesel-driven products, but difference between petrol and diesel are almost 20 rupees a diesel liter once upon a time. Now it is almost equal, or much more some cases. What do you think that this is also because the diesel cars were also a little expensive as compared to the petrol cars? But do you think this will also affect the demand because your capacity is more diesel than petrol?
No, sir. I mean, I believe that the demand is basically for personal transport. I will not say agnostic of fuel, but if one fuel is more highly priced, then people go to the other personal transport that's available, be it petrol, be it CNG, whatever. So that is not the question at all. It's a question of the purchasing power of the Indian consumer, and also the sort of the expense, the cost of the vehicle. Like what Mr. Dhillon was saying, the taxation of vehicles in India make it seem like it's taxed like a luxury product. And I think unlike Mr. Dhillon, I would say that the demand is cost. I mean, it is elastic in the sense that if the tax, for example, we always give a lot of promotion. When you give a promotion, when you give a discount on the vehicle, for example, the demand shoots up. So we gain in much more numbers than the promotion would warrant. So similarly, I believe the government had a short-term scheme, a 3-month scheme of reducing GST, as I think was tried out earlier in 2008, if I'm not wrong, in the last recession. The government had reduced excise taxes. So suddenly we saw a spurt in demand, which I believe would have made up more than what the government would have lost in the reduced taxes. So I think demand stimulation like this might be a good idea for the government.
Are you saying that GST should be reduced on the car?
No, I believe that, I mean, the government should check it out because the demand is elastic. In case I reduce the tax by say 2 or 4%, and actually the overall the volumes go up by say 10%, then obviously the government would have gained tax rather than losing tax.
What is the composition of taxes in the price of a car, like your car, which you're launching now? What is the composition if the total cost is say 25 lakh? What is the composition of a tax? I'm asking both of you.
I'll give you a rough figure.
Okay, if I'm buying a car 25 lakh rupees, I'm paying 10 lakh rupees to the government of India and the state government. If I'm buying a Audi for 75 lakh rupees, I'm paying X amount of money to the government of India. Let it be known to the people. I want to ask both of you.
Yeah, I'll tell you. See, for example, for the Seltos, we would be paying something like almost 48% tax. 40-odd% tax, and on top of that, you're also paying your registration tax for the state governments and some other small.
What is the cost? Let me break into the car. Percentage people sometimes don't understand.
Yeah.
What the car you are selling at what price?
So we are selling it at, for example, maybe the top end will be at around 16 lakhs. For 16
lakh, it means
around 48 lakhs.
7 lakhs will go to the government.
That's it. On 48% of I think 10. Yeah, it will be around I think 10 lakhs, and the rest will be the tax. And top of that, again, the on-road price will be more because the state governments also put in their own road tax and other taxes.
That's quite a lot. That means it.
That's right, exactly. So this is, I mean, a car in India is not considered just a public, personal transport. It's considered a luxury product. It's tax like
basically, transport sector, whether it is a car manufacturing or the petroleum products, they are the source of major income of the government because petroleum products are also taxed at 40%, 38%. That is what you buy. Mr. Dhillon, what is your thing? Mr. Dhillon is not there.
Mr. Bhatt, may I just step in quickly and ask a question while we wait for Mr. Dhillon, Mr. Chawla? I wanted to ask that, there's certain new kinds of, ownerships that are being discussed currently. People are talking about subscription models, short-term leasing models. Is that a possibility post-pandemic that people don't buy cars, but they lease them for a short term? Is that likely?
See, it's quite possible, especially with the younger generation. It's got its pros and cons. The pro being that yes, it is comparatively in the short term, it costs you less, and you're enabled to change also according to your taste. So to that extent, it's a very. But having said that, so far it's not really caught on in very great numbers, but it's a very good idea going forward. So I think the automobile manufacturers, all of us will be trying out all these means of actually reaching out to the customer.
How is the customer in India behaving differently from the customer in Korea, say?
That is a very difficult question to answer, considering that, see, in India, still a car purchase is considered a very aspirational and a very, next to your, when you first look at buying a flat or a house for yourself, after that, maybe a vehicle. So in India, the car ownership is very, very low. I think it's something like 36 per 1,000 or something. Whereas in any advanced country, even in China, it is something like, I think 110, 115 per 1,000. So the comparison is like, it's like chalk and cheese. So the way they behave about a vehicle here and a vehicle there, I think is very, very different. It's like more white goods sort of a thinking possibly in a developed market as compared to a very aspirational product here in India.
Is that likely to change post-pandemic where there's great fear of public transport, that you're likely to catch the virus?
Yeah, we have seen, like I said, we have seen, I think, increase in demand for the lower end vehicles, the more affordable vehicles, for your used cars, for your two-wheelers, because since your public transport is not available or people fear to take public transport so much, so they shifted to having their own. This is why we see such a good demand for used cars today, as well as the lower segment vehicles, the hatches and all that.
How is your man?
Well, Kaveri, because Mr. Delno was not there, let me complete that process again.
Yeah, please.
Mr. Delno, I was asking him how much money goes to the government pocket out of the car price if you actually sell it to me or any other customer. Your high-end product, for example, which is selling maybe, I don't know, 1 crore or 75 lakh feet, what is Q7 or Q11 model has come. What is the price and how much of that goes as taxation?
Okay, so I will have to divide this question into two. One is the cars which are completely imported into India, and one are the cars which we make in India. So the ones which are, the local assembly that we do. So the cars which are imported in India, they fall in two categories. Either they, depending upon the cost of the car and certain engine capacities, the import duty is between 60 to 100%. So first is that tax that you pay. Then the GST is between 48 to 50%. And then once you have the car, the registration tax is between 10 to 20%. Let's say if you're buying a car worth 1 crore rupees, you will end up, let's say giving a tax in the range of about 65, 70 lakh rupees out of the 1 crore that you spend. That is on the fully imported cars. But that's not the volume that we do. Most of our volume, 95% of the volume that we do is mostly the cars which are made in India. There, the taxation is 48% GST, 48 to 50% depending upon configuration of the cars. And then obviously between 10 to 20%, which is a registration tax. So there, if you buy a car worth, let's say 50 lakh rupees, you would end up spending about 20 odd lakh rupees plus minus, giving the taxation.
Oh. That's no, I can understand because money they are making.
That is why I was saying that while we only contribute about 1.2% of the automotive industry as a whole, but the taxes that we end up paying, the revenues for the government is almost close to 10%. That's the difference. So by selling 1% of the overall automotive, we contribute 10% to the taxation.
That's quite some kind of a encouragement for the government to tax more because they get a lot more money for volume.
Okay. since you're touching this topic, it's a very, very critical and important topic. Last 10 years, the automotive industry has almost doubled. And the luxury segment has actually become 4 times. If you just see last 10 years, but we have grown from a very, very low volume. We have definitely become 4 times, but the volume is too low. What happened when we were growing every year, we were talking, we are growing 50%, 60%. And obviously government must have also been seeing those figures in the newspapers and the taxation went up and up and up and up. But now we've reached a point, if this is not taken care of, our growth has stopped. We have become 1.2% and probably this year is even lower than that. So if this is not rationalized, we will not grow. So at the end of the day, the idea is that we grow. And when we grow, we not only bring the turnover, but we also bring employment. At the end of the day, if we manufacture more, we get more people. We're selling very limited number of cars, but we still have highly competitive, like all the dealership employees that we have across the country, almost 2,500. These are highly skilled people. We also bring employment where people are earning better. When these people are earning better, they're also buying cars. So at the end of the day, it's a full cycle. And automotive is one of the industries which employs the highest number of people directly or indirectly. So we need the factories to churn vehicles. We need to sell more. That's the idea. If we've invested, we have created capacities, but capacities are not fully utilized. This is the problem.
No, I was to just clarify the taxation structure is similar to both imported manufacturers like you are producing in India as well, and the other indigenous products like Maruti, Tata Motors and everything. Taxation must be same for everybody else, isn't it?
So for luxury segment, it is more. We also have a cess, which is almost 22%. Otherwise then the tax is, let's say 28% for the luxury segment. You also have another cess. And then, then you see the problem is not just tax.
Let me clarify. Luxury segment start from which price?
So it depends upon which. So it is basically about the size of the cars. If the cars are beyond certain size and beyond certain capacity, engine capacity, the taxation becomes higher. So it is depending upon the size and the capacity of the engine where the taxation differentiates. The problem is not just taxation, it is tax on tax. When I was talking to you about import tax and GST and registration, let's say you are importing a car which is worth 100 rupees. Firstly, you pay 100 rupees import duties. So 100 plus 100, 200. Then obviously we will make a little bit margin, dealers make little margin. Let's say it's become 220 all put together. Then we sell that car by putting for 50% GST. That means the car has gone beyond 300. And then on that 300, you pay registration tax of 20%, which is again, whatever the calculation is. So it is not just tax, it is tax on tax. Import tax, on that you pay another GST, on that you pay again registration. So it's a multiple layering of taxation.
Are you saying this? No, Mr. Dhillon and Mr. Dar both have asked. Are you both of you saying the taxation structure is such which is against the foreign manufacturers in India? It is favoring the domestic manufacturer?
For sure, domestic manufacturing.
Because they are not in the luxury segment. Most of them are not in the luxury segment anyway.
Yeah, true. We are a very small part of the automotive industry, and we understand very clearly that making in India is very important. That's why most of what we sell is also made in India. It's about 5-7% that we sell which are fully imported. Most of the cars that but at the same time, we have to also keep in mind large part of the cars which we also make in India. A lot of components are imported because the volumes are not enough right now to start making those component also locally. So there are limitations there as well.
I'll ask you, sir, because you are not in the luxury segment per se. Sir. So you are getting the same tax structure with the domestic manufacturer getting, or you have to pay much more than them in the same price segment?
So you ask me this question?
Mr. Dar.
Mr. Dar, okay.
Because he is not in the luxury segment as you are. You are selling cars which is much more expensive. That he is selling a car at 17 lakh rupees, and there are other manufacturers who are also selling the same car at the same price. Like you got Mahindra, you got Tata Motor, they are in the same rate, almost the same car. Are they paying less tax here than what Kia would end up paying?
No, I didn't get that. We are also domestic manufacturers, just like Mahindras and any other company. So we are paying the same tax, like what Mr. Dhillon said, depending on the size of the vehicle, whether sub 4 meter or not, as well as the engine capacity. So we pay taxes as per what is laid down by the government. And like I said, for the Seltos, for the top end Seltos, which is considered a luxury car. So over the 29%, we also have this cess, which makes it effectively for the top end, for the diesel, for example, is around 48%. 48%.
Okay, on the luxury segment,
like you said, another layer of your state government tax also. Your RTO tax, which can be 14 odd percent plus some other local tariffs. So that makes it pretty expensive, I would believe.
The kind of, Mr. Dhillon, I'll put it very frankly, because the kind of thing, the problems you have pointed out. I'm asking you very specifically, do you find India as an attractive investment destination now after what you have spoken?
Of course, we have, as far as Kia is concerned, we have invested 2 billion, that is Kia and its partners, we have invested $2 billion, and we think is a very good investment here. So we are doing very well, and we got good plans for the future, and we expect that this market is going to grow only. So already, I think, one of the most top 4 markets in the world. So we believe that going forward, considering the low penetration of vehicles in India, this market is only going to grow with the economy. So overall, in the long term, it's still a very good investment and a very good investment destination for us.
Mr. Dhillon, I'm asking you now, luxury market, because your market is very limited.
Mr. Dhillon, I think you need to unmute. Yeah.
Are you able to hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, so what I'm saying is whenever we make investments, they are not made keeping in mind what we will be able to do immediately, but also keeping in mind the future. So let me give you a little bit more picture of the automotive. Like I mentioned, we have doubled as an automotive industry in last 10 years. We are also world's 5th largest market, and everybody is saying that by, let's say, 2025, we will also become probably the 3rd largest market in the world. That is one. So in the year 2018, we, I think, sold more than 3 million cars. 2019 is where we started coming down, and obviously 2020 is a problematic year for everybody. So with low penetration, like Mr. Bhatt said, my figures are, let's say, less than 30 cars for every 1,000 inhabitants we have. So on one side, you have a large population. It's a growing economy. The penetration of cars is very, very low. And we already are number 5 market in the world with the population that we have and the growth of economy. You have young generation in the country, and 65% of us are less than 30 years of the age. So all these things are already giving us a very clear picture that the years to come are going to be growth years for India as an economy and also for automotive market. Luxury segment, as I mentioned, is definitely low because of high taxation. See, it is only 1%, but imagine if this 1% becomes 2% and 3%, we are actually doubling or tripling ourselves very, very quickly. So we are basically, if you remember when the GST was implemented, it was said that the cess component will remain only for 5 years. Thereafter, the cess component will go. For us, the cess component is 22%. It's a large amount. The moment that goes off, obviously the price elasticity will come into the picture. So all these taxations are keeping us, suppressed. I am sure in the times to come, we will also grow, and we will probably grow leaps and bounds what we have invested and what we are investing is keeping in mind the future growth. The volume that we do at this point in time, it's difficult to sustain. We keep investing either directly or indirectly through our dealers, but we are also anticipating at some point in time, it will definitely jump in terms of volume luxury segment. When, it is difficult to say, and it is even more difficult after the pandemic. But there will be a time when the luxury segment will grow quite drastically.
As you rightly pointed out, the luxury segment is very price elastic. Because I remember when some of us got some big cars, like a luxury car, the price of that car was about 40 lakh rupees. And the same car is now costing about 80 lakh rupees. So basically, my company has to make double the profit to give me the same car.
Yes.
Here. So it is because of not much because of taxation, but because of the increasing prices at your part. Per price house. So price elasticity, what are you doing to pass on, make it less expensive and more attractive?
See, obviously, we cannot do much on the taxation part. So we keep ourselves as lean as possible because, see, now we're getting into nitty-gritties. So I'll give you, I'll get into nitty-gritties. The money that is spent while selling the cars is either we pay interest, either we or dealers when you keep inventories, or you pay a lot of rentals when you put nice big showroom and workshops. And third is manpower costs. Obviously, manpower cost we would not want to reduce because this is where we add a lot of value. In terms of reducing the cost of holding the cars is what we have taken care during this pandemic time as well. We have taken off certain costs of the dealers. We try to keep our inventories as low as possible. And obviously, our dealer partner also renegotiated with their landlords to reduce the rent.
Yeah, Mr. Dillon, we just
Sorry.
Yeah.
Are you able to hear me?
Yeah, we can now. We lost the last part.
Okay, so I'm saying that there are certain costs which we can directly reduce, which we have been working. But at the same time, let's say right now we are manufacturing 3 models in India. If we increase the number of models manufacturing in India, that helps. And then let's say one day we are able to export from India. Even that helps to bring down the cost because the more we sell, the more we are able to negotiate for our buying. So our manufacturing also depends upon at what price we buy each of our material which goes into a car. So the volume increase also helps us reduce our cost of manufacturing. So all these things I think comes into play, and we continue to make these things more and more efficient so that our cost of manufacturing is low.
Yeah.
Nani, can we have you ask a question to these 2 gentlemen, please?
Yeah, hello everybody. Hello Prabhuji, hello Kaveriji, hello Mr. Dillon and Mr. Bhatt.
Good evening, Mr. Rajan.
Yeah. First of all, wishing you all a very happy festive season ahead.
Thank you.
That's important. We are on the festive. And congratulations to Mr. Dillon for the new Q2 which has come, and it looks very nice. And I'm also an Audi owner. One of my cars in the garage, and I'm very happy that it's more than 5 years and 0 maintenance. Prabhuji has been concentrating on a lot of taxes and lot on the car sales of the luxury, and I'll just take half a minute to tell him more about the cars things in the country. See, currently in India we are selling around 2.5 lakh to 3 lakh cars. But where the US market is almost 7 times bigger than this country, and the population there is very low. Similarly, the two-wheeler industry in India is around 12 lakhs. So just imagine the potential. And like Mr. Dillon said, there's a huge taxation. On a 20 lakh car, you pay 10 lakh as tax, then the RTO tax. if the government really takes some initiative and the car industry would move ahead. So my question, I'll just change the topic and come to some other thing. So here I would like to ask Mr. Dhillon, post-pandemic situation, there is a very surge in demand. The demand has become very high last month. So what are your customer-centric ways, what you plan, and how digitalization will help to upgrade these people who are buying these niche products?
Okay,
so my topic was on more on customer centric with the surge on demand and digitalization, how it would help in premium car sales, because it's a niche product and people are upgrading to their dreams for the achievers.
So many things that we are doing. I think pandemic has also advanced certain things which we were doing. We have been focusing on digitalization a lot. But during the last 6 months, when we could not sell much, we could not go out much, we were focusing a lot on digitalization. So we have augmented reality, AR, VR experience for our customers. So what we are seeing is that before buying the car, the time which customers are spending online on research of the car has actually increased. But said that in our segment, in luxury segment, people still want to buy the cars only if they see and if they drive the car before they buy the cars. They themselves and their families, they sit together and then they make a decision. This is just one part of the story, which is on the digitalization side. When you say how do you promote, you just mentioned that we've recently announced the pre-bookings of Q2, but we have launched this Q2 with a special program for the beginning that we will, for our customers, we'll give 5 years of maintenance free, extended warranty and roadside assistance. So, so that if you're buying the car at this point or book the car now, this is the benefit we want to give. Like you just mentioned that you're an Audi owner and that you have had trouble-free period. At the end of the day, every time we sell a car, we create a salesperson for ourselves. So our endeavor always is to make all our customers so happy that at the end of the day, the emotion moves by itself. So this is second part. The third part is that there are also a lot of youngsters who want to enter into luxury segment earlier than buying a new car. So we also have Audi Approved Plus, which is a pre-owned car program. Let's say we have 80,000 cars across the country that we've sold. We want every car to be sold at least 2 times. How that happens is that when you own an Audi, I also want to buy back that car from you and sell it one more time at least, if not more. So we keep this cycle on so that we also give more experience to our valued customer and bring them into our fold. And it is always easy to maintain an existing customer than to find a new one. So we keep on finding this new ways to promote our products and find ways into the hearts of our customers. That's what our endeavor is.
Guglani, you want to ask Mr. Dhar any question?
Mr. Yeah, I have a small question for Mr. Bhatt. Hello, sir. Congratulations for the lovely Summit launch. As you are aware, we are hitting the worst situation in the pandemic, and this September sales has been fabulous. We have achieved almost 290,000 car sales, which was again in 18, which is much higher than 2019 figure. And the next 3 months still looks upbeat. You have been selling more and more cars. Other manufacturers have increased the share. As the world economy is going down and the Indian economy is also suffering, what do you think would be the situation after January? Because this 3 months looks upbeat. Again, a lot of production, a lot of competition, a lot of stocks in the market. But somewhere the customers have been accommodating the cars as because people have not spent on holidays or some reason, there has been big sales, which you have been visualizing. So what do you see, what would happen after January? So.
Speaking for the auto industry as a whole, like I was mentioning earlier, the automotive demand for the automobile industry is directly linked to the economic growth and to the per capita income growth. Only when people, the general population feels richer, do they start splurging on things that are like car and other things, because it's still a very aspirational thing. So having said that, it will totally depend on the sort of economic growth we are forecasting for the next year. As things stand, we don't believe that the economy will reach the level of 2019 till the end of maybe next year or beyond that. So from that, one can conclude that unless there are other steps taken by the government, like demand stimulation or something, which will also boost the economy and the demand, it is unlikely that we will reach the 2019 figures also even by the end of next year. It looks unlikely
One thing,
by this
sorry.
very straightforward logic. But
So
having
do you
said
think this? Do you
No,
think this demand which has happened for September and what you were seeing October demand, this is just temporary phase? It looks very temporary. The curve might go down immediately, maybe by January.
it
Because
what I'm
it has
saying
been
is,
the
yeah,
demand the last month has been, you know better, and the industry
That's
from like 220,000 in September 19, where we had a festive season ahead, and with so much of lockdowns and pandemic, 292,000 coming in.
No, what I was saying was, as compared to see, in the medium term, the automobile demand will obviously be totally linked to the GDP growth. Now, next year, if you look at next year, there's a totally washout month in April, where there's no very little zero demand for. So, considering that, there will be some growth, especially because May, June are very low base months. So, we can see a growth in automobile demand there. But overall, for the entire year, I don't think we'll come back to 2019 volumes, is what I was trying to say. Yes, next couple of months we'll see decent demand, but it can be really partly be because of the pent up demand, and in the medium term, the overall, what do you call it, the dynamics of the economy will take over. I don't think we're going to be seeing a huge increase when just like October is going to be a very huge month, and Jan, Feb, and all that will not happen. Even the turnover will not reach 19 figures, it's pretty unlikely.
I would just argue saying that year on year basis, year 20 will not be as good as 19 was or 18 was.
No.
No, because Mr. Gurnani, as a person who's on the ground, is very upbeat. He seems to be much better than everybody else, and he is very optimistic, and he is giving me a hope to both of you that you will be able to sell much more than what you are thinking in your own drawing room. Is it good?
All I'll say is, like we say in Hindi, unke muh mein ghee shakkar. I hope it turns out good.
Of course, I am also Ji sir.
You are trying to encourage them, na, by the dealer.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because the focus, because when I say that the social distancing has helping us to sell more, people want to buy more cars, and then, like I said, a lot of people who haven't taken holidays, each abroad holidays of 5 lakh to 6 lakh rupees. So families, those who have not taken abroad holidays, they have money to spend on their cars. But again, you know, the scenario is changing. So there's been a very good demand in October, November, and December, what we are assuming. So we want to be upbeat for January coming year also.
And the time is little short. I will ask both of them one question. Mr. Dhillon and Mr. Dhar, what do you expect from the government to do to encourage the car and motor car industry? One or two suggestions you can make. Mr. Dhillon.
Can I go first?
Any one of you, you have to answer both.
See, from my point of view, government has done a lot for what they pumped in a lot of money into the economy, 20,000 crore, 20 lakh crores and all that. So that's all been to the good. But I think going forward, we can also look at demand stimulation in a more focused manner than what they've been doing so far. It can take many forms. So one form is, I think, what is already being discussed about the cash for clunkers scheme, being the scrappage policy. So if that comes, I think that will definitely boost the demand. As also, I think they can also look at something which is comparatively low cost or deferred cost. For example, if an individual purchases a car, okay, he's an income tax payee, so you can get an income tax rebate. Or if not that, if you're taking a loan, auto loan, so you get some benefit on that, like you get on a house loan. So this will not immediately impact the government revenue. It is sort of slightly deferred, but these sort of steps can maybe boost the demand or stimulate the demand for vehicles and to the benefit of the overall economy. So I think
If
government
I
should
got
start
it right,
taking some steps like this.
Mr. Dhar, if I got it right, are you saying that interest on loan taken for a car should be deducted for the taxable income like we do it for the housing loan?
I think it will be a good idea for the government, especially for
Okay.
a limited period, for say 3 months or 6 months for the next financial year, or something like that. Which again,
Okay.
it does not immediately entail any impact on the government's income, but only later.
Now, Mr. Dillo, your final word.
So I would say two things. One is stability in the policies. If you get stability in especially for us when we prepare ourselves for 3 to 5 years long-term planning, we need very stable policies from the government so that we are able to plan well. This is one. Secondly, I'm only talking about luxury segment. Luxury segment is treated as like a sin goods. So that thought process has to go away because we also contribute to the economy. We also generate revenues. We also generate employment. So I think these two things on the government side, if they're able to do, I just want to give you one example. Last year, last quarter of last year in 2019, Goa government decided that they will reduce the registration tax to, let's say, 50% for 1 quarter. They wanted to stimulate the buying. And it really gave us, let's say, 50% increase in our sale in a small location like Goa, where luxury segment is not very, very big. So anything which is done by the government definitely gives an impact. But for us, short-term impact is not something which we are looking at. For us, it is most important that we get stable regime in terms of policy making, as well as we should be treated like equivalent to an otherwise automotive industry. And that's my request to the government if they're able to consider this two requests.
We should not be treated as sinners.
Yes.
Kaveri, over to you.
No, thank you very much. We're flat out of time, but thank you, gentlemen. It's been a very interesting discussion. And I
Thank
hope,
you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dillo.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Mr. Bhatt. Thank you, Mr. Dillon. Thank
See you again
Kaveri
soon.
ji.
thank you.
Thank
Yes,
you.
sir.
Bye-bye.
See
With
you
good
again.
news. With
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
good news.
But sir, this prices, and if it comes down in the country, the car sales will definitely, the taxes should come down. If this could motivate the taxation, it would be great.
Thank you. Thank you very much.